Okay, perfect. So today we have a new BU Powerfully Talk, and we have actually an amazing young woman. Her name is Setou Ouattara. She's a member of Zahara Stream. She's a mentor, but most importantly, she's a leader. You know, she drives a lot of initiatives. She's based here in the US, in Boston, Massachusetts, and she's going to talk to us today about the power of storytelling to heal trauma and how to make sure that we tap into the power of our words, of our stories within ourselves to be able to heal some of the personal or professional traumas that we may go through. So I will leave the floor now to Setou, who will guide us through today's BU Powerfully Talk on the power of storytelling to heal trauma. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Verlin, and thank you for having me. And thank you to all of you who are here today, this morning, or afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I see some familiar faces. I see Lauren Fry. Lauren has been, a great mentor to me as well. So I'm glad she's here today. I just wanted to start by saying that, so today we'll be, discussing trauma and storytelling. Storytelling has a mechanism to heal from trauma. And I think whenever we talk about trauma, it's deeply, when we talk about trauma stories, they're always, deeply painful, deeply, really difficult to talk about. And it might be challenging for, some people to hear about some of those stories. They may trigger, trauma memories for you. So I just wanted to, to put that out there. So if you needed at any point, to I don't know, take a minute, step away and come back, I think that's totally fine. So a little bit about myself. I have been here in the United States since 2008, and I've been really working in social work and, child welfare primarily. When you do child welfare work, you are, touching the lives of kids, children. You're also touching the lives of families, of communities, right? Because children don't just, exist by themselves. I've held many roles over the years. And it's work that brings me a lot of joy. Feeling like you're part of, you have something to do with someone getting better. Seeing the light at the end of the tunnel after some work together. So today we're talking about storytelling and trauma, right? We know that people have been telling stories for generations and generations. For those of us who are from, African descent, we can certainly remember our grandmothers, our mothers, telling us stories about their lives, stories of resiliency, story of pain, sadness. And through those stories, it's always a way to, to reclaim who they are, to really take a look at how they overcome challenges. We've also seen, artists across the world really using storytelling as a tool to raise awareness around all kind of social injustice issues, and also has a way to really raise awareness of what's happening to people. For example, here in the United States, when you take African American, Black rappers, for example, through their lyrics, through their songs, they're really talking about racism, structural racism that has really plagued the African American communities for centuries and centuries, and that continues to this day. But today we're talking about our personal traumas and how storytelling can be a mechanism to heal from those trauma. I mean, basically when we all, enter this world, each of us comes into this world, let's say has, for the most part, we come in with a clean slate, right? When we're babies, let's say, for the most part, we really don't have any concept of pain, fear, judgment, or anger. Uh, but we do know that trauma can shift the scales. We have no control over some of the circumstances we're simply born into. But we do know that early experiences shape the way we view the world, how we see ourselves, and those around us. I'm sure all of you here today, if you take a minute to think about, yourself, family members, some friends, some colleagues, you can probably pinpoint at some time in your life where something challenging happened. I think the truth is that we all had some sort of traumatic experiences, at some point in our lives. Maybe your traumatic experience was, I don't know, a car accident, a fire, maybe you lost a loved one, maybe it was sexual assault, intimate partner violence, bullying, workplace harassment. It can really be anything. But no matter what it is or what it was, we do know that those experiences often lead us to judge ourselves very, very harshly. Those experiences can make us believe that our flaws and our imperfections make us less than. And I'm sure that everyone here today probably at some point, I don't know, at one point or another, struggle to love themselves. That's just the reality. And, I know that I have. I think simply stated, trauma really just shatters your sense of security, your attachment to others, and most importantly, I feel like, the connection of feeling hope in the world. And that's a big deal because when you lose that hope, it's really hard to move on. You really become, transfixated in this one place where it's really hard to take the next step and move forward. You lose a lot when you lose hope. Trauma can leave us, feeling upset, disoriented, hopeless, just out of control at times, right? And sometimes it has a way to protect ourselves when we go through a traumatic experience. What do? We go into denial, which perfectly can make sense because it's just way too painful to try to revisit those trauma memories, to try to go back to what happened to us, to what that unspeakable, that unbearable, that horrible thing that happened to us that really shattered our world. So we try to push away those memories and really not think about. But unfortunately, with trauma, the more you really try to push those painful memories away, the more they'll find ways to really come back to the surface and continue to impact your day-to-day life. So then, what do we do, right? There are many ways, people deal with trauma. I won't bore you with brain science or psychotherapy, but today we're focusing on storytelling, how that can be a mechanism for us to beginning to heal. I think the way I think about storytelling is really about, creating and crafting, our own personal narrative, of what happened to us, right? It's almost like you're really starting to clarify your life event. What happened to me, right? Because we know when trauma happens, sometimes we dissociate, sometimes it's just, you become disorganized and it's all not very clear. So when we begin to really define and create that personal narrative, I think we begin to make sense of piece by piece, we begin to make sense of our lives, about what happened to us. And through really telling our stories, it also offers us a chance for not just understanding, but like I said, to also really begin to reorganize our sense of self. Because when trauma happened, our self is broken, it's wounded, it's lost, and it's frightened, right? And through storytelling, you can really begin to reclaim that slowly. But it's really important to note that if and how you decide to share your trauma stories is a very, very personal choice, and we have to choose carefully those we entrust with this part of ourselves, because it's a very personal experience. It's a very painful experience. So the person you're choosing to open up to share that very deeply personal part of yourself should be chosen carefully, because it has a lot of ramifications how that person is going to respond to you telling them about your trauma. Are they going to respond with support or criticism? That's important in terms of how you're going to be able to move forward. And I think that's where here in Zahara's dream, a community of sister keepers that in a way really have an important role to play for one another. Zahara's dream is a beautiful community where, people from all walks of life come together to really try to elevate and, just help each other out. It's what it's all about. It's all about that. So when your sister finally decides to open up to you, you really have a responsibility to make them feel heard, to make them feel validated, and above all, not to make them feel judged. That's definitely the last thing that that folks need, and that's really judgment. It's not helpful. So, think about it. So why is the response so critically important? It's because you're really bearing witness to something deeply personal and deeply painful. And the truth is, I think I've said it in the beginning, that hearing about those stories may trigger some things for you. Maybe you haven't dealt with your own trauma, so you may not know necessarily how to respond to the person who is disclosing their trauma to you. But the reality is that your response to them will either help the person start their journey towards healing, or it may just shut them down for a while, because maybe they were met with harsh criticism, or maybe they were just met with judgment, and then you may have set them back for a long time again. So you might be thinking, well, I'm not an expert, I'm not a therapist, so I wouldn't necessarily know what to do. And, I think the fact that you're the person you're the person who's been chosen to hear this story, to bear witness to somebody else's trauma, to me, that means translate to, to trust already existing between the two of you. So if you have somebody's trust, I think that's fundamental. I think we already have, for me, the most important thing. So we've talked more about, how to respond, but again, just bear in mind, the person is talking to you, they trust you. That's a huge, huge, huge step. So I want to tell you a story about a girl named Leah. And through her story, we'll see, I'll tell about her trauma, and we'll see how, like, storytelling really helped her kind of overcome some challenges in her life. So Layla, at 13 years old, she was sexually assaulted. She was raped by someone she knew, a neighbor, actually. So, and she was threatened into silence by her rapist. She was scared, and she was just too afraid to tell her parents. And he told her, if you tell anyone, I'll deny it and I'll spread other, lies about you. You can imagine that at 13 years old, that's a difficult predicament, and why, this girl will be so scared. And at first, she blamed herself for trusting this person and for not keeping herself safe, pretty much. And what this traumatic experience did for Layla was really to, destroy her sense of security, her trust, her hope, and love altogether. She blamed herself. She thought that she must have done something horrible wrong for this horrible thing to happen to her. At that moment, the world just became this really, really dark place for her. And she lost the ability to respect or love herself. Layla felt dirty. She felt ashamed, disgusted, unlovable. And she really began to form an identity that was informed by all those, terrible, awful feelings that she had inside of her. And how she went through her teenage years, she would, rebel. She rebelled against her parents. She engaged in really high-risk behaviors that, could have completely destroyed her life. And she just left people around her wondering, like, what was wrong with her, because seemingly from the outside, everything seemed to go well. She had this stable family. She was going to a good school. She had friends, yet people couldn't really understand why she was, acting out the way she was. So Layla really hated herself. She, no matter what she did, she just hated herself. She went through her high school years not really being able to overcome, that horrible thing that happened to her. And so she could not reverse what had happened to her. She was really trying to lock away the 13-year-old Layla in this dark closet and threw the keys away, so she never had to deal with her again, and maybe she could forget about her, right? And while she was excelling in high school, making friends and thinking about college, 13-year-old Layla was still locked away somewhere, terrified and rejected in the past. And that was because Layla just did not know how to love the part of her that she believed make her feel less than. She did not know how to deal with that part of herself. So fast forward, Layla is a freshman in college, and she reconnects with an aunt that she has lost touch with over the years. So she, begins to visiting her frequently. Her and aunt have a trusting relationship. And just, one day out of the blue, while she was visiting her aunt, her aunt asked her, so what happened to you, Layla? Did someone hurt you? You always seem bothered by something. Layla was surprised that her aunt asked her that question, because she was doing, all that she can just to present, like, this bubbly, person. But if you hear the questions that her aunt asked her, it's like, what happened to you? right? When you ask somebody what happened to you, then you're really coming from a place of compassion. You're coming from a place of empathy. And most importantly, you're really shifting the responsibility, right? You're saying someone did something to you, something happened to you. By shifting that responsibility, by saying you did not do anything wrong, whatever is going on, it was brought on you. You did not ask for it. That's important. So by asking those questions for the first time, because Layla felt safe enough, she felt that she trusted her aunt. She opened up to her aunt the first time and told her a story, what has happened to her almost like a decade before. So through telling her story to her aunt, what happened with Layla was that the feelings of shame began to subside. Because you have to understand, right? When you go through a traumatic experience, when something happened to you, when you keep it a secret, it really reinforces the feeling that there was something shameful about what happened to you. In this case, what happened to Layla, or keeping the secret also reinforces that maybe telling others will make them think less of you. But by sharing your story, by sharing her story, Layla began to see that, okay, she was met with support from her aunt. She was not shamed. She was not met with criticism. So she began to see, okay, there's really nothing wrong with what happened to me. Layla also had a lot of unhelpful beliefs about her trauma, right? About the sexual assault. For example, she thought that, maybe she should have been strong enough, to make him stop, or she should have, yelled, louder so someone could have come to her rescue. She also thought that, she will never be able to trust anyone again in her life. Like I said, this was someone she knew, this was a neighbor, this was someone that, her family knew. So by telling her story and with the support of her aunt, she really, began to slowly shift her perspectives in terms of those unhelpful beliefs about what had happened. And you also have to understand, when Layla began to revisit her trauma memories, at first they were very upsetting. She will have strong emotional reactions, she will have physical reactions, and that's normal, because it's bringing really her back to the day this horrible thing happened to her. So she was really struggling with that at first. But when she was retelling the story, time and time again, she really started to see a decrease in the distress that she was feeling whenever she told the story to her aunt, and it was less and less overwhelming. So how she talked more about her trauma, Layla also began to feel like a certain sense of control, of what is what I'm looking for, mastery. She found that she wasn't that broken, that she wasn't broken, that she was not weak. Because those are the things that you really walk with, right? When you're keeping that dark secret somewhere, you have all those feelings, all those really you're judging yourself harshly. But when you talk about it, you really start to feel, okay, I'm in control, this is what happened, I'm not that weak person that I thought that I was. I do some work with I remember a couple of years ago when I was leading a support group for women survivors of sexual trauma at the Rape Crisis Center. I remember that, as we went on, they will describe finding strength, every time that, every time they were able to describe and tell their stories, they felt like they were stronger, they felt bold, as the fear really lessened for them, and then they were able to find greater freedom in their lives. So that's the power that that storytelling can give you. So this is, some of the things that were really helpful to Leila in her journey towards healing and towards recovery. So I just want, I'm kind of looking at the time. I want to be just gonna go give you a couple of quick takeaways so we can go towards the discussion. I'm sure some people have questions. So some takeaways that I really want you to maybe walk away with today. For me, really, the biggest benefit of sharing our trauma stories may just come from starting to make sense of a senseless event. There's no way you can, make sense of some of these horrible things. But by through telling your story, you may start to make sense of those horrible things. And I think it goes without saying that not everyone is the ideal person to share your trauma with. That's just the reality. Some people may be struggling with their own, with your stories based on their own trauma because they haven't really addressed their own trauma yet. And others might just, respond with blame and criticism, right? And also timing is super important. It might take time to get to a place where you're ready to put your trauma into words. That's okay, right? Maybe in the meantime, all you can do is journal, right? Write it down. That's fine. You have to be patient with yourself. You have to recognize that, you not being able to talk about it now does not mean never. The when, the where, the how you tell your story is entirely up to you, not to anybody else. And as you move through your own recovery, it's, you do not have to measure your sense of well-being against anybody else's. It's not, healing is not a one, size fits all experience. It's going to be unique. Your timeline is going to be unique. As is your story. Trauma is, needless to say, it's a life-changing experience, and healing is it's a daunting and enormous, task. But when you finally find the will, the courage, you get to a place when you're able to, it's a way you have that power to reclaim your sense of self in your life by just inviting your story to be told. And with that, I, want to tell you that 13-year-old Leila is me, right? Learning to love and to embrace her has taught me to love myself as a whole. It's through exploring my own personal narrative, I've learned to just embrace the struggles. When I say struggles, just struggles. What the struggles have taught me, and to just celebrate the strengths, what the strengths have also given me. Are there days, where it's hard? Absolutely. But it's all of me. And I have to embrace all of me. There's no way around that. And I want to end with this quote that I really love. It's by Viktor Frankl. He goes like this: everything can be taken from a man but one thing, and that is the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I hope that you can learn to love all of you. Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to, hand it over to my sister, Verlaine.
Oh my God, this is so powerful. Thank you so much. This was just so powerful and so healing, even to hear, the story you've shared and how Leila, is you. And I think, it's as women, I'm sure that, we do have men participating often in the View Powerfully talks, but, I think we all can, come back to what you said and really identify, with the story of, the back and forth and how do you tap into your inner power and realigning yourself, with yourself within. I love what you talked about, the disassociation, and then finding the power to come back home, and your home is within you. And thank you so much for sharing that today. We're gonna open the Q&A and try to make sure that everyone has a moment to discuss and engage. I saw that Demi, who is your mentee, you're a great Zahara Stream mentor. We're so happy to have you. Had her mic on, so perhaps Demi, do you have a question?
Yes. Oh my God.
Great.
Good evening. It's evening here, and Setou, oh my God, your story. I'm stunned, and I'm stammering right now. Oh, let me get myself together. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I said during our calls, you're always so particular about being confident and finding the strength to tell your story, to be true to yourself, to face those fears. And it is beautiful to know that we have so many people who just talk, but they don't do the talk. Like they just talk, they don't actually do the talking, they don't do what they preach. And I am so grateful that you actually do what you preach. And I am honored to have met you and to be learning from you through the processes of whatever it is you've gone through. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you, Verlaine, for having me. And Setou, thank you for sharing your story, which is inspiring. It is beyond inspiring. As a young woman, I can connect with it. And I'm sure if we
I think we've lost Danny.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Demi. Perhaps if we can leave the floor open, you're welcome to unmute yourself and show your beautiful smile on the camera so Setou can see your beautiful face when you ask for your question or comments. The floor is open. Thank you. Okay, perhaps I'll do. Umi, would you like to come in?
She's muted.
Yes, Juliana, go ahead. You have your hand up. Juliana.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this beautiful talk today. I was really touched by the story that was being shared. So, well, I actually have a question. How do you help someone who is young, like probably a toddler or somewhere there, to heal? Because I think, as you're mentioning in the story, it started off from like a young age and you grew with it. So how do you then help someone who is so young to heal and to get to accept the situation and get over a certain traumatic event?
Yes, thank you for your question, Juliana. Yeah, it's certainly challenging when the kids so this young because they don't necessarily have the language. Maybe you just know that this has happened to them. I think depending on what's developed in your community, because again, trauma treatment, trauma recovery also takes into consideration cultural aspects, spiritual aspects, religious aspects, and tapping into those resources. I know here, for example, for children this young, play therapy is something that's really helpful to really help them, describe, their feelings, and, through just like, guiding them through play therapy. That's what's helpful. But I think, with all kind of trauma with children, I think what's really proven to be helpful is really, it sounds like, I don't know if this person is I don't know what's the relationship to you, but having adults in their lives who are consistent, who are providing them with, unconditional love, we are supporting them, no matter what, who are there for them, when it's hard, when it's, because it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard. But having that consistency and having that love, that's consistent support, that's helpful. And like I said, that can be coupled with formal, trauma treatment, depending on like what's available in your community.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Setou. I don't see any other hands up. I think perhaps also we have to be, honest. Trauma is very difficult to discuss. It's always, as you said, actually at the very beginning, it's a very personal undertaking, and then understanding what is our own timeline, how do we share the trauma, and how do we overcome it. So we understand if it's a bit difficult to even engage, in the Q&A and raise questions and comments. If you do want to share some of your questions, please do come in. The floor is open. Perhaps one comment or thought that I personally have on that, I think you've shared a very important point at the beginning, Setou, when you said that trauma can take multiple forms, and it can range from sexual harassment to workplace harassment, and how do we overcome it? And I loved what you said, finding salvation, if I can say that this way, within ourselves and within communities, And this is what Zahara Stream is about as well. This is a healing process too. I think we discussed it, and we're very excited to have Demi and you as mentors and mentees. Zahara Stream is about coming together, of course, on the professional and level, but looking also at the personal, and how can we put some healing cream, if I may say that this way, on some of the scars we may have. Sometimes it happens collectively when we can have discussions like this, or bilaterally, having just the knowledge that I have a sister that I can call and talk about some of the pains or challenges that I'm facing. And so I'm really happy that we're building that up now with Zahara Stream. And I would encourage anyone who has some questions or that they would like to raise even bilaterally with Setou to send a message or to share your email, and I'm sure that Setou will be able to be in touch. Thank you. The floor is still open.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, feel free to reach out to me directly if you wanted to. That's fine.
Hello everyone. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Sir. Yeah, thank you so much for that. I have to admit that I haven't really ever experienced trauma personally, but I do know people who have. And what I found really impressive with you just now is the fact that despite not only going through the trauma, but you also bottled it up for over almost 10 years. What is it between the trauma and the 10-year when you spoke to your aunt about it? What is it that kept you going to be ambitious and to make something of your life from the negativity that you were displaying when you were a child?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. It's, it was hard. It was hard. It was really challenging. I talked about high risk behaviors. It felt because that inability to really love yourself, and finding that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, and that's heavy. And what that does is that you really, you know almost like every waking moment, you're really trying to do something to destroy that part of self, because you really think it's it's just not, it's not bearable. But I think what was also what helped you know me go through high school, and like continue to go through school, was this part of me who also knew I didn't have the necessarily the words, or even at that point able to put words to the things that I was feeling, but I knew that I wanted something different. I wanted to come out of that. I just did not know how, and I did not have the resources to really figure that out. And another cultural factor is that coming from a Muslim family, where notions around like you know uh, virginity and all of those things are like very, very important. So because normally your parents are the first people you really go to with something like that, but the fear of disappointing them, or disappoint because you already feel like you've disappointed yourself, really just stop you. It was it was struggle, a lot of bad days mostly, but I knew eventually something will be different, and I needed to be alive to see that. And I'm forever grateful to my aunt, because she was a turning point for me.
Carl, I think you're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, my friend, she took her own life at 22. She was molested at 15 by her mother, and her mother did not believe her. And it just, but unlike you, she went into a downward spiral. I mean, including promiscuity and everything. But then eventually, when she did take her life, the note, it was a 3-page A4 on both sides, and she spoke about her stepfather and her mother, and the fact that her mother did not believe her, and the support. It doesn't matter where else it came from. Had it come from her mom, she would have been able to live with it. So, I'm just so proud of you, and so very happy that you were able to turn your life around, and to be able to be here helping others, because surely, I guess I said I haven't dealt with trauma. I guess in a way it's trauma, because I'm talking about her now. We were childhood friends, and I feel myself tearing up. So yes, I have. That is my trauma, I guess. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, you lost a friend, so that's traumatic, and under really difficult circumstances. Suicide. It's really impacts everyone involved.
Mm.
It sounds like you haven't really talked about it, and the fact that that's what storytelling is all about. So when you really start talking about it, then you really start to see this is how it really impacting me, and your own, healing can begin that way.
Mm.
And with sexual trauma, I think it's really common that children are not believed. Some children will tell the parents multiple times this is happening, and for a variety of reason, parents just choose not to believe them, because it will shatter, it will tear apart families, it will tear apart of things that they know. So unfortunately, children are sometimes just sacrificed to bear the burden and the brunt of this horrible thing that's happening to them, to preserve the family system, or just to preserve, our, whatever, to save face, in society. That's,
Which,
like I said.
which that's exactly what it was, because believe it or not, this man was a pastor at a church, but our family didn't go to church, but my parents tried, especially my mom tried to speak to the mom, and she wouldn't listen. So that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. This whole stigma and trying to preserve that so-called status, which really, it's yeah, it's very sad.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome. And, for us sister, we are our sister's keepers, right? So just remember, right, when your sister comes to you, if you don't do anything, believe them. Believe them.
Setou, if I may, there's a question from Vivian. She's in the transport. She cannot speak, but she shared her question in the chat. She shared that she had been a child care provider for a family of 5, and there was one boy who unfortunately did not seem to integrate within the family unit. So a lot of trauma and loneliness for a small child. And she's asking, how can we help a young child of that age to feel part of the family and heal trauma? Thank
you. Okay. Excuse me. I mean, it sounds like the circumstances around the trauma are not clear. Maybe she didn't say it. I'm just curious to see, what's happening with that kid. Is it like, is it physical violence? Is it like, verbal abuse? I think understanding the circumstances are really important, and also engaging the parents, if that's at all possible. And, she's a daycare provider. So depending on the laws of the country, sometimes, you are a mandated reporter if you feel like, a child is being abused, right? And to try to identify those abusers and protect the child that way. I mean, she's, the child is coming to daycare and Vivian is working with her. I think she, in her role, can really, again, try to understand what are the circumstances, and while he's there, trying to engage the child, talking to them. I don't know if he's at an age where he can really talk about what's going on with him, why is that he's acting out, and because unless you really understand the circumstances, like, you're not going to know how to really tailor your interventions, right? Like I said, there are multiple forms of trauma, and depending what's happening, that's when you can really target your intervention, how to help the person. So I'll encourage Vivian to engage this child, maybe through, art therapy, or through, just talking, if he's at an age that he's able to do that. And if it's appropriate, reach out to the parents to try to understand what's happening.
Thank you so much, Gladys.
Yes. Thank you so much, Setou, for this conversation. As you can see, I'm trying to find my words, because as you and Sister Valen and all the others have said, trauma is very something difficult to touch on, be it the fact that we live it ourselves or someone, share a terrifying story with us. And I just wanted to have your view on, I feel like when someone shared a story with us, a traumatic story, there is this fine line between you willing to help that person and telling her or him to go see a therapist, and when you are in conversation with someone who, let's say, might be in denial, like, they're sharing the story with us, but at the same time they feel that they don't need to go to see a therapist. So I wanted to see, you know, when you're facing that story, you don't want to push that person to go against her or his will, but down inside, you know that, you know, that person might need a therapist. So how can you subtly, you know, help that person this way, you know, find a way to like a medical support. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. That's it. It's a really good one. It's, you know, I think I talked about denial, and, you know, and depending again, you know, based on your culture, how you were brought up, you know, help seeking is not something necessarily like, you know, that we're accustomed to. You know, in some cultures, even going to see therapists equates like, you know, something is wrong with you, right? And but I hear where you're coming from, right? When your friend is, you know, sharing, you're hearing that story, um, you know, they have to be ready, right? You might feel a certain way, maybe they need to go talk to, you know, a professional, but they're not there yet. Like I said, the fact that they're entrusting you with that story, it's, that's the first step that they're taking, right? It might take them some time to get to the point where they feel like, you know, they can go see a professional. Uh, Healing has to be guided by the survivor, right? It, you know, they have to go, it's going to be at their own pace. You know, when you push them too hard, then, you know, you might lose them. You know, at least they're talking to you. You might not feel like, you know, you have the professional, you know, qualifications, you know, to help them. But I think by listening to them, by supporting them, just by being there, I hear you, I'm with you. I cannot imagine what you're going through, but just know that I'm here. And I think that goes a long way until they're really ready to take that next step into their healing. It takes time, and like I said, it's a journey that's going to be unique um, for for everybody. It's it's a unique experience. So I think you should not feel discouraged that they're not necessarily taking your advice. Your role is really just to show compassion, to show empathy, to just be there. Um, at least they have you, and that's a first good step.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a very powerful discussion, Setou. I just want to let you know that we're receiving private comments on the chat. I think, you know, as you mentioned, very, you know, very simply, trauma is you know, people go on their own timeline, and it can be very difficult. But we've received some message privately in the chat, you know, that some people feel the words that you're sharing, but there's so much pain within to be able to come out and comment. But to thank you, you know, for providing tools and words of healing and compassion through your own story.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's it. I think it's understandable. It's understandable, and I just, you know, hope this is, you know, this is, even just by being here, engaging in this conversation, being able to sit through this talk and hear about some of the things that, you know, we're talking about. That's also a step. You know, it might not be today, like I said earlier. It doesn't mean because it's not now, it doesn't mean it's going to be never. You know, it's okay. You know, be patient with yourself. It will happen when you're ready, and when you find that person that you think you can entrust, you know, that part of yourself with, because that's also important. So I appreciate the comments for sure.
Thank you so much, Zaytuna. I saw you were muted. Okay, so we had Zaid who had unmuted herself. I'm not sure if she wants to come. If you want to come, Zaid. Otherwise, we have 5 minutes, perhaps, if we don't have any additional comments or questions in the Q&A. What would be, Setou, your three main tools, I would say, moving forward? I know you've shared some, particularly through storytelling and community and listening to each other. But what would be the three main, I would say, lifting up power tools that you were able to find within yourself to move forward and to rise up beyond the pain of the trauma?
Thank you. So I would say one is really surrounding yourself with people who love you and people who support you. That's important because through love and support, having a community of people around you that can provide those things to you can help you heal from your trauma. And the second thing that I would really encourage folks to think about, if you've experienced a trauma, that's allowing yourself to feel, allow yourself time to get there. It's not a competition. You have to feel ready. It's a unique experience, and unless you're ready, if you push yourself too hard, it could be re-traumatizing. Excuse me. So give yourself that time, be patient with yourself, and find small ways in how to really go into the day-to-day when that trauma that trauma memory comes to surface. What can you do in the moment to feel okay, right? That's really where, understanding some grounding techniques. Maybe you can take some, deep breaths, and try to calm yourself down. Maybe then you have a friend that you can call to say, I'm not feeling okay today. Again, it goes back to having that community of support, but being patient with yourself. I think that's something I'll encourage, absolutely. And the third thing is, it goes back to when we had the womanhood celebration, right? Finding your voice, right? Finding your voice. How you figure out how to find your voice, because that will also help you really continue to work through that journey of healing. When you find your voice, you can break away from many things. You find power, you find reassurance, you find confidence, and that can be a trigger point of saying, okay, I actually have something to say. This is my story, it matters, and I want to share it. So those are some things that have helped me along the way. And it's okay. There are many days where you won't feel okay with yourself. You feel like, I don't love myself today. But those moments will become less and less and less and less, how you begin to reclaim yourself and your power. And journaling is a powerful tool. Before you're able to talk about it, write it down. That's when you begin to really put those pieces together. So, excuse me. Sorry about that. When you journal, you can begin to really put those pieces again. it's clarifying what happened to you, because every time you go back and you revisit, that trauma event, what happened, you'll realize, okay, I didn't really think about this piece, you know, or I actually forgotten about this piece. And then you see, even during that maybe traumatic experience that around surrounding that time, there were moments where there were joyful moments. There were a moment where, you know, you're like, wow, I was really strong. I was going through that, and yet these are the things that I was able to accomplish. You know, I was playing volleyball, you know, in high school. That's that's amazing. You know, I was, you know, top of my class. I was doing a lot of, you know, amazing things, and yet I had these heavy things kind of like, you know, weighing me down, like, you know, every single day. So when I went back, like, I was actually strong. I was not weak, you know, and this is why. So yeah, those are kind of like, I know that's more than 3 things we learned, but.
That's powerful, Setou. Really, I think your testimony and the way you walked us through the process, you know, and even your own power of sharing your story through I want to say an external part that is part of you, you know, being able to say, this is what happened, and she's there, and I am here, and we're all part of me. I think this was really powerful, and it really resonated with everyone on the call, you know, and it gives us a lot to think about for the weekend. I mentioned that, you know, you've received a lot of comments from, you know, from young women participants on the call who feel, you know, the process that you shared, and are not now at a place to share, you know, and I think this is what Zahara Stream is about, you know. For young women, the Be You Powerfully philosophy is exactly about what you mentioned. You know, it's a process. You don't get, you know, I love the image you shared even at the beginning. You know, you're born, you don't have any form of any negative influences, you're a clean slate, and then the world comes in and things piles up on top of you from, you know, societal, cultural, personal, professional, and all those heavy weights, you know, on your shoulders. But the story you've shared today, I think, gave us the tools for reflecting, and even your 3 last asks, and I love the last one you've shared on finding your voice, you know. And I hope that through Zahara Stream we can help young women who are here present, and we're so grateful that you're here with us. We're graced that you're here as a mentor, because you're not only today as a guest speaker, but you take your own time to mentor young women through Zahara Stream. Demi, of course, is your mentee, but also the community, you know, that we have online. So really thank you for that. And I guess before I leave you the very last word, Setou, because I would like for you to have the very, very last word. I really encourage you know, our sisters, young women, and even older senior women, you know, so trauma doesn't have age, you know, it doesn't have, age is nothing but a number, if we can say it this way, and it doesn't matter how old or how young you are, you know, it's a journey, it's a process, and you may not be at the same, you know, the same stage. So take the time to heal. Zahara Stream is a healing platform. It is for me personally. And I hope that we can all continue to come together and heal through a lot of the traumas and pains that life gives us. But, you know, we keep in mind that we're like phoenix, sorry. And, you know, we continue to rebirth and to rise again, you know, beyond that. So Setou, my sister, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, so you know, what I just want to say to close is that, you know, I know, you know, whether, again, you've experienced, you know, personal trauma, or you just, you know, watch a loved one, a friend, a colleague go through something, we all, in some ways, are suffering in silence and isolation, because we think that, you know, our story, you know, separates us from, or make us, you know, make us less than. But that's, you know, that's not true. We don't have to suffer in silence. We don't have to suffer in isolation. For us women, we're raised, you know, in the society where we're told to, you know, not be not be too loud, not sometimes not tell our stories. Be humble. Let other people tell your story. You shouldn't be putting yourself out there. Those are myths that we should dispel, because it really holds us down, and we have to break away from all of those things. And again, it's gonna take time. I'm really glad that we have Zahara's Dream, this platform, to come together, to learn from one another, and to empower one another, right? It's incremental. Don't feel discouraged. Like, if you feel like, your journey towards self-discovery is taking longer than you wish, or that you are not able to speak up, use your voice, or tell your story yet. That's okay. It's a journey. It's a unique journey for all of us. I think the most important thing is that you have, made yourself part of a community that would be here to help you, to guide you through whatever you need. And let's all be our sister keepers if we don't do anything. Thank you. And I wish all of you a beautiful weekend. And yeah, I hope to see you again on the platform online and all that. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Setou. This was so powerful. Thank you.